I've been really busy doing other stuff. I need to clean my garage. I need to get on this Audi TT. This is the 225 horsepower version. You can tell by the dual exhaust. That's an easy giveaway on these things. It's also got quattro all-wheel drive. All the 225s had quattro. That's a Heldex rear differential. So it's not really a real all-wheel drive. The real all-wheel drives, just so you know, have a transverse engine, kind of like a rear-wheel drive type vehicle. Everything with a transverse engine is garbage. You know, I'm kind of joking when I say that, but I'm also kind of being serious. So we're gonna do a quick undercar inspection here. This thing has around 100,000 miles. I believe it's slightly less. So let's just take a quick undercar inspection. We did not have a splash pan, a belly pan, undercar cover, whatever you want to call it. Tell me what the thing is that we call this thing. Let's figure out, what do most people call this pan under here? Belly pan, splash pan, engine diaper. So I went ahead and took out these side pieces just because I'm not putting a splash pan in here. It did have these little plastic side pieces that were still in there, so I just removed those. It does look like there's some kind of oil seepage, some kind of oil leak right here. So I'll have to take a look at that. Looks like it's coming from up top somewhere in the turbo region maybe. The suspension setup looks kind of cheap. You know, this to me looks budget, very budget. This whole subframe comes out, this is like an A3. The lower control arm here, we have these bolts that you can take out so you can adjust the camber like this. One thing that you can always look at on these things is, on every car, is the CV boots. And it's busted right here. What's this one look like? Busted right here. See that? Always want, if you're buying a car or you're inspecting a car for repair, always look at your CV axles. Of course, you always want to shake down the front suspension, the front wheels, the rear wheels. You always want to look at your tires, your tire wear, your brakes, your brake pads, your rotors for like, we'll talk about all that other kind of stuff in the future. But, you know, this one had twin intercoolers. A lot of the stuff back in this time frame, like the A4s had twin intercoolers, for instance. Even the A6s, if I can remember, yeah. So we got a intercooler right here, and then the pipe comes over here, and then we have another intercooler right here. The air goes through here. The intercoolers are for cooling the intake charge for the turbocharger, because the turbocharger gets really hot. You want to cool that air off before it goes back into the intake. This is the transverse engine, what I'm talking about. The engine sits sideways, the transmission sits right next to it right here, and then you have this differential that the power comes out for the front wheels, and then we have the prop shaft tucked in here above the exhaust, above this panel right here, and then we can see it right here. So one of the things that I'm going to do to this car is I'm going to remove this resonator. I'm going to keep the factory muffler. I'm going to remove whatever these things are. I don't know what those are called. They look unnecessary though. I think they're robbing my horsepower, so I'm going to take those out and I'm going to replace this with like some kind of hydrogen battery fuel cell or something. So that was a joke. We got the secondary air pump right here. This is a timing belt engine. I'm going to replace the timing belt, the tensioner, all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to do too much to this. Just put the exhaust parts on. I'm going to do some maintenance. I guess I have to put either axles in or just replace the boots, which I don't know what I'm going to do yet. This is a budget car, right? I'm not going to put a bunch of money into this. I'm not going to keep this car. I'm just going to do a few things to it and then sell it. We have our headlight control rod popped off. This is for, like, I guess the headlights were automatic adjusting on this. For such an old car, that was pretty fancy. So the newer stuff has the intercooler on the bottom here. The turbo cars, like my 4 cylinders, all I run. The intercooler is in the middle. They got away from doing the sides intercooler. That was just something they were trying. You don't need 2 intercoolers like my 300ZX twin turbo had, because you don't have 2 turbos. You have 1 turbo. Don't mess around with the 2 intercoolers. That's kind of weird, but they tried weird stuff. So, what else can I say? What else are we gonna do to this thing? I'm gonna change the Heldex filter and fluid back here. That's a maintenance item that some people probably neglect. This is kind of interesting. This looks a little oily. I wonder how it doesn't look like the CV boot's busted, but it must have a little crack in it somewhere. The oil's coming out from this flange gasket or something. It's interesting. I wonder what this other one looks like. This other one is dry, so that's pretty interesting. We've got big fuel tank. Fuel tank's on this side, and then there's a saddle tank that comes around on this side as well. So, very cheap looking suspension back here as well. We just have this big rod right here. We have the trailing arm, a coil. We have the upper control arm. This is the CV axle. This is our sway bar link, our shock. If this was a strut, it would be inside the spring. This is the spring, this is a shock. Of course, it's disc in the front and rear. I can't think of any Audi that I've ever worked on that's had drum brakes. How old do you have to go in Audi to get drums? Has anyone ever seen it? Tell me. A busted rubber grommet on the top of this spring. Let me see if I can. See how this, there's supposed to be a rubber insulator on the top of this coil spring, and it's all just kind of rotted out. See that? It's no longer insulating the top of the spring to the frame. Let's see what this other side looks like. See how it's just a little bit brittle there? This side's still intact, but you see how it's just ready to fall. See how it's falling out. This is the rubber jounce, but it's no longer there. There's usually some kind of spring stopper there. Oh no, this one it's built into the bottom. It's right there. And it's right here on the bottom. It's hard to see right in there. So everything on this car is factory. It had this little spoiler here. Those were not factory. They apparently had high speed stability problems though, and that was an update for them to get those little spoilers for high speed stability. So they didn't, I don't know, they were rolling over or something. They were doing something silly. So functional wing in the back. Everything's pretty straight and clean down here. I don't really see rust. The body's straight. It could be way worse. Oh, I was gonna say, like, if these shocks are leaking, there'll be some kind of fluid around here. Now in the front, we do have struts because there's shocks and the springs on the outside. Technically, this is called a McPherson strut. And you also want to check up here to make sure that there's no leaking fluid. You see this, this piece is all broken. This is supposed to go all the way up, and it's come down. Should we lower the car? This is pretty rare for struts to have a protector in here for the rod, but you can tell that there's no leaks. Actually, Audi struts are very good. They last a very long time. I can't remember seeing one needing to be replaced and leaking. They're so good. Kind of this, I've heard the same thing about like Acuras and probably Hondas as well. Okay, that's it for now. We'll make more videos on this car as we do more stuff. It did have a license plate cover. I took that off because I don't run license plates here, but they had to screw in all these screws. Some cars don't have this panel though, so at least I have it.